Welcome back to Fantasy Football Coffee Break, where we help you win your league in 30 minutes or less. If you could please hit the like and subscribe button, I'll love you forever. Today we'll be previewing the NFC West and talking about hype trains, avoiding them in the drafts. Do not derail your season. Sal is unfortunately working this week, and so we couldn't connect, so it's just me, but please enjoy. We're going to talk about two things. We're going to talk about avoiding hype trains and then stacking, what that means. And then we will do a preview of the NFC West. So first off, avoid the hype train. Y'all saw those PSAs from the 90s, I assume, when you were in school about playing on the tracks. Do not play on the tracks in this. Avoid the hype trains. What is a hype train? Every year we see a player, maybe two or three, who gets hyped up beyond reasonability. You must draft this guy. Trent Richardson, 2013. Peyton Hillis, 2011. Last time, a couple times, been Kadarius Toney. We've seen Kyle Pitts, Kelvin Benjamin, Tyson Williams over the years. Hype trains. Some work out, some don't. Last year, there were 3 that I can think of off the top of my head. First one, Jahmyr Gibbs. He was a huge hype train before the season. Hyped up, his draft stock went up and up and up and up and up. Why? Because he was on a team with a good offense. He was on a team where they needed a running back, and they drafted him highly. So he has talent. He's highly drafted. He's on a good offense. He should get touches. He's a pass-catching back, should get targets. I was super high on him, and he worked out really well. But early in the season, he didn't work out as well as a lot of us had hoped because David Montgomery was in there as a real back who got paid real money and then who vultured the touchdowns. We should have seen it coming that he was not going to get 25 touches a game. Now, I didn't think he was going to get 25 touches a game. I just did not think that David Montgomery would steal all the touchdowns. And I think everyone pretty much agree with that. But he was actually a hype train that worked out. He had talent. He got the touches. He got the targets. A couple of others from last year, Jackson Smith and Jigba, didn't work out. He was a hype train that crashed, went off the rails, if you will. Why is that? The talent was there, but the offense, he was going to be the third wide receiver. So was he going to get targets? Not as much, because you have a good receiver in Tyler Lockett. You have DK Metcalf, who's kind of the alpha there. So a third receiver, not going to get a lot of touches. And then Jahan Dotson also got a lot of love, especially last year going through camp. Kind of a similar situation. He was not the number one. That's Terry McLaurin. Did not have great quarterback play. So these hype trains, you got to think, is this something that is going to work or not? So watch out for hype trains. Don't get off the rails. We'll talk about some of them as we go this year. The second thing I mentioned is called stacking. And that's where you have a quarterback and a wide receiver, or a quarterback and a tight end. So since we're doing the NFC West, specifically to the Cardinals, I'm going to talk a lot about stacking today. So you have the two positions on the same team. So let's break this down. So we will talk about first the Arizona Cardinals, my favorite fantasy team, along with the Commanders, as far as value goes. So you have Kyler Murray, which you can do names. Also great pickup if you're looking for fantasy football names, the Murray up offense, the Murray go round, etc. In fantasy football, he is a legend already. He is fantastic. In real life football, jury's still out. But if you take every quarterback that ever played an NFL game and sort them by career fantasy points per game, Kyler Murray is 4th. So points per game, 4th. Very consistent. And when he came back last year from injury, he ran the ball 5 times or more in every game but one, which creates a tremendous floor. It's very difficult to not run, to run the ball 80 plus times in a season and not be a QB1. So he is my favorite player at current draft position. He's rated as quarterback 10 on ESPN, 79th overall. Probably cost you a 6th or 7th round, or it just depends on what Cal Camp goes. But it's perfect. He's consistent. He will run. They're going to be losing a lot. They're going to be a scrappy team. It's fantastic. The other people you'll want to know from the Cardinals, and while we're talking about stacking, here's the people we're looking at. Marvin Harrison Jr. Now, he's a hype train player And he's being drafted, in some cases as wide receiver, 7, 8. Right now, he's listed as 21st overall as wide receiver 10 right now, even though he's listed on ESPN as wide receiver 13. So you see that kind of hype starting to build. Is wide receiver 10 too high? Maybe, but we've seen Murray force feed the ball to DeAndre Hopkins last year, Hollywood Brown before it. So if you like him there, take him there. I don't see a problem with it because he has the talent. He'll have the targets. And Kyler Murray will get him the touches. So he's got the 3 T's. He should do well this year. Whether or not he's a top 10 guy, up for a discussion. But you could stack them. So talking about the stack, Kyler Murray in the 6th round, you draft Marvin Harrison in the 2nd or the 3rd round. Boom, boom. Murray has a good game. Harrison has a good game. Hey, you're getting the double. The other player you could stack him with is Trey McBride. He is one of my league winners last year, listed as tight end 5, and I love it. So he's currently drafted as the 4th tight end, mostly because of the way he finished the year. He averaged from week 8 onward nearly 15 fantasy points per game, which is good enough for tight end 3 behind only Evan Ingram and Njoku for the Browns. A McBride Kyler stack is one I'm actually really targeting, but if you want to really go for it, you can do a McBride, Marvin Harrison Jr., Kyler stack. Go for 3. We saw a big playoff game one year from a guy who stacked Texans when they were horrible, and just they all went off, and his team crushed. So stacking has its advantages. The running backs will be interesting. So here's the second hype train. James Conner will not go away, but he will miss several games. He did finish last year strong and was RB18 on the year, but he'll have competition from another Reddit hype train, Trey Benson. If you are drafting Benson with the hopes that he will be a weekly starter that gets 20 touches per game, this is a fool's errand. James Conner is a good player who will not go away. He will not. He will miss games, and potentially Trey Benson might overtake him as far as touches, but this will be at best a split backfield. So James Conner is listed as number 72, running back 22 overall. An RB2, just like last year, consistent. Trey Benson, pick 137, running back 45. If you get him in the late rounds as a flyer, that's fine. Right? Do not take him in the single-digit rounds. That's falling for the hype train and losing out on people of value. So let's say you draft him in the 8th or 9th round, like some people I've seen do. Who could you get there? Well, at 83, you get Terry McLaurin. At 82, Deontay Johnson. If you want to get former hype train players, you can get Kyle Pitts. At 88, Jackson Smith and Jigba. At 42, you get Hollywood Brown. At 104, you get Tyler Lockett. You can get Zach Moss. You can get these players who have value. Or you can get last year's top pick, Austin Eckler, at 100. Or at 103, you can get number 2 running back last year, Raheem Mostert. So if you're reaching for the hype train, man, it will derail your season faster than anything else. So don't reach. Don't reach for the hype train. Don't derail your draft. The second team we'll look at in the NFC is San Francisco. If you're going to San Francisco. Personal opinion, I do not think Brock Purdy is that good. I think Kyle Shanahan is a great coach who can make an average quarterback really good. He could win a Super Bowl with Dak Prescott. That's all I got to say about that. But the one thing you need to remember, it doesn't matter how good they are in real life. We're only talking fantasy football. And in fantasy football, Brock Purdy finished last year as quarterback 6. And if he still has Ayuk and Debo, then he's good to go at that position. You have so many good quarterbacks. If you wait for a quarterback, like I recommend doing, he's a nice one to pick up. He'll be going in the 8th round at quarterback 11. If you wait and just stack your team up with talented receivers and talented running backs, and you get Brock Purdy, hey, nothing wrong with that. Running backs, CMC is the consensus number 1 pick. He was one of 2 running backs with over 20 fantasy points per game. Last year, he averaged 24.5, which was 6.5 higher than running back 3. He was an absolute stud. Age and injury history are a concern, but he has been healthy the last couple of years. Brandon Ayuk was a steal last year. I was super high on him, but I got sniped in the draft a couple picks before I was about to take him. He finished last year as wide receiver 14. You have a contract issue as a concern. If he signs a new deal, then hey, drafting him at number 38, in the fourth round. Wide receiver 17 is a good deal. If he does not sign a new deal, then I'm probably going to avoid him at that price, honestly. Rated right below him, a player that I thought correctly last year was overvalued, in Deebo Samuel. Wide receiver 18, number 39 overall. He had a higher point per game than Ayuk last year, but he struggled with injury for several weeks, and I like him better. So last year I liked Ayuk better because of how high Deebo was going and how low Ayuk was going. This year it's kind of reversed because of the contract issue. Ayuk, if he does not get a deal, like I said, I'm avoiding. Deebo finished strong last year, and he's going to run the ball. He's going to get some weird touchdowns. They love getting him touches. So that's it for receivers you'll want to target there. The other one is, of course, tight end. George Kittle finished last year as tight end 5, but he's so inconsistent, and I can't stand him. He's a player that if he's on my team, I'm sure I love, but I like the Cowboys, so I can't stand him. If he was on the Cowboys, he'd be my favorite player. Him and the other 49ers, except for, of course, Christian McCaffrey, burn hot and cold in fantasy. And so he will burn you several weeks of the year, but he'll also win you a couple weeks. So it's just strange. So here's an example of his point totals. Let's go over several weeks. He had 1 week, 4.9, then 6, then 16, then 1.9, then 27.7, then 1.1, then 13, then 23.9, then the bye week, then 20. And then he got better in the second half as more players got banged up. Very draftable position, tight end 6, 68th overall. The inconsistencies are just, I don't know, man. I'd rather go for Kyle Pitts a little later. Take a risk on Njoku. Jake Ferguson is more consistent than him. Like, not as good, but more consistent. So, as far as 49ers, there's really no one else worth drafting, of course, other than their defense. But this division is actually fun because later on you have the St. Louis, I'm just kidding, Los Angeles Rams. Many heartbreaks of my life include that one. No Aaron Donald for the Rams this year, so they will take a step back defensively. And who was the Rams defensive coordinator last year? Let's see. Raheem Morris, who happens to be a coach somewhere else, which, will he be as good? No, because you're missing one of the greatest defensive players in the history of the game. But that's a good thing for us because it means the game script will be changed a little bit. So, more points. Let's start with the quarterback, Matt Stafford. He's ranked as quarterback 20 on ESPN, not really draftable in redraft 10-team leagues. He finished as quarterback 15, and he was number 6 in weeks 12 through 17, so he was hot down the stretch, and in the playoffs, he was dynamite. If you miss your guys, he's a streamer, but that's about it. This team had not one, but 2 league winners last year, 2 guys who, and we'll talk about my strategy for waiver wires later on, but man, Kyren and Puka. So Kyren Williams, number 2 back in points per game last year, off the waiver wire. Won my league because of this. 23.1 points per game. Remember when I said be quick to adjust to intel, especially if a running back gets quality touches. Week 1 last year, competitive game. 12 carries, 52 yards, and 2 touchdowns, and 2 catches for 2 yards on 2 targets. Quality touches right there in a close game. Not garbage time. And I remembered last year that they kind of had a hot and cold situation with Cam Akers. So I picked him up, and like I said, led me to glory. Right now, he's being drafted in the start of the second round at pick 11 if you're in a 10-team league, running back 6. It's a good spot for him. Only worry here is the Rams drafted Blake Corum in the 3rd round out of Michigan. There's a worry about split touches, but honestly, McVay loves a workhorse and rarely splits carries. So I don't see this as a Detroit situation. I see this as maybe Corum gets 5 to 6 carries, and they limit Williams to 18 to 20 opportunities, which is carries plus targets per game. And that's not bad. That actually might help stretch him over the whole season. The other revelation for the Rams was Puka Nacua. Wide receiver number 4 last year off the waiver wire. This is why the team you draft is not the team you finish with, right? Even with Kupp back, he is the big dog now. Stafford loves targeting specific guys, and he will load up his guys. And so think about it. People who are doubting him saying, oh, Kupp's back. Remember, after Kupp got back, Nakua was still wide receiver 8 as a rookie. So at pick 13, wide receiver 7. Man, if he's there in the second round, snag him. Good player. And a guy who loves getting him the ball. The other couple of guys for the Rams who are interesting, obviously Cooper Kupp. He's not the volume king that he was a few seasons ago. Finishes wide receiver 40 after missing the first 4 weeks. Averaged 13.7 points per game, so not bad. But if you're looking for a wide receiver 1, that's not what you're looking for. That was good enough for wide receiver 24. So a flex option. He's going as wide receiver 23 in drafts. That's about right. There are a couple names that go after him. Zay Flowers and Amari Cooper. I would put ahead of him just because they're at the top of the target tree and he no longer is. If I grab him as my third wide receiver or my flex, that's fine. A name to keep an eye on. So if you remember Fort Minor, remember the name Demarcus Robinson. He's a late round guy I like a lot. 201, wide receiver 73, depending on the depth of your draft. He finished it was wide receiver 12 in weeks 12 to 17, and he didn't play in week 18. So if Kupp continues to decline, Stafford continues his hot streak, man, he was a really good player. And the Rams showed you can support 2 receivers. Tight end, Tyler Higbee, don't draft him. If he turns into something great, don't draft him. Which leaves us with the Seattle Seahawks, a team who people love their jerseys. I don't know, man. I like the old ones better. This is an interesting thing because you get new bosses, but you get the same teams. I've worked in places like this. It's the new boss, but all the people are theirs. And then the boss has 3 options. Fire everyone. Just keep doing what you're doing. Go with what's been working, or micromanage. Now, because of contracts, they can't fire everyone. They're not going to go with what's working, and football coaches like to micromanage. So there you go. The defense should be better because they got the Baltimore staff, so that's good. The new offense, the one I'm actually looking forward to the most in this new offense is DK Metcalf. He's the one I'm most interested as far as skill positions are concerned. Geno Smith, he's going as quarterback 27. He finished quarterback 19 last year. We're 1 year removed from him finishing as quarterback 5. So he has the talent and he has the big dogs to throw to. I don't mind him as a streamer or a backup if you like holding 2 quarterbacks. So no Aaron Donald to deal with in the divisions. So that helps a lot too. But yeah, he's not going to be your starter unless you're predicting something great for him. DK Metcalf finished as wide receiver 16 and wide receiver 21 the last 2 years. The problem is he's been drafted as a wide receiver 1. Now this year, he's listed as number 37 overall, wide receiver 16. And that kind of has been the top end of his performance. He was wide receiver 23 in points per game. This one's an interesting one because he has been disappointing the last few years, but new offense, it's the guy out of Washington who opened up that offense, the university. So if I'm taking a chance on someone in a new offense, he has the physical traits and he has a quarterback who can get him the ball. If he falls to me, maybe in the 5th round, I'm absolutely taking him. He's listed late 4th right here. So if he's around 5th round, I'll probably take him. Tyler Lockett was wide receiver 39 last year. He's listed as wide receiver 44. That feels about right. He's interesting because he went from someone who's super boom bust to being very consistent last year. The hype train king, Jackson Smith and Jigba, finished with 8.8 points per game. So there you go. Second year receivers better than first usually. He's listed as wide receiver 42 above Lockett because of the potential. There's probably a couple of receivers I'm more interested in that range, but he's someone that could take a huge bump this year. So if you like him at 93, wide receiver 42, if he's your fourth receiver, I mean, that's the time to start stacking up on guys that can blow up. So that leaves us the running backs. Ken Walker the third, wide receiver 19 last year, 13.3 points per game. Really nice running back too. That was drafted too high last year. 32 overall, running back 16. I'm probably passing here with the new staff. That could come back to bite me. But there's just some later round guys who have a more clear path. Because Charbonnet's there as well. And I could see this one. He played better down a stretch. He's an interesting pickup at 117, running back 39 overall. I could see this one being closer to a 50-50 split. Now, we might have to wait till after the camp and what the scouts are saying as to who's getting more, but even those can be a little overrated / exaggeration. So, if I'm picking a running back at cost, 32 overall, running back 16 for Ken Walker a third, or Zach Charbonnet at 117, running back 39 overall, I'm going to go Charbonnet just because of the new staff. Let's wait and see what they look like. I'm sometimes risk adverse. I like more sure things when I'm drafting that high. And it's worked out well for me. It's talking about my background. You can lose your drafts early on, and then you can win your drafts later on. And so look for guys with potential late in the rounds, like a Zach Charbonnet, who might be listed as a backup, but could take the job. Look for other guys. If you're going late round, you want guys that can potentially win you the league, not necessarily safe picks. That's kind of the philosophy there. So if you look at where Charbonnet is going, so what did I say? 117 overall. Who else is going there? Antonio Gibson. Meh. Jerry Jeudy. Meh. Gabe Davis. Meh. Gus Edwards. More interesting. Antonio Gibson. Meh. You know what I mean? Like, you have some guys that are going to get some touches. Adam Thielen's going a little later. And so Adam Thielen, I think, was probably a safer pick to get you 10 points a game, 8 points a game. But Zach Charbonnet could take over the backfield and really make a difference. So that's kind of my thoughts. So to summarize, avoid the hype trains, especially over in the early rounds. Don't overdraft a player. Don't overdraft it. That's how you lose your drafts. Stacking is fun when they do well. So if you get a Kyler, Marvin Harrison Jr. stack, same players, quarterback and skill position on the same team, super fun when they do well. But if they don't, then you get 0 there. So could also be no fun at all. That's all I got for this week. Or for this time. NFC West.